Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. This is our 6th event in our 2021 Seed Series. I'm Mike Long. I'm a member of the Sustainable Essex Committee. And before we go any farther, I just would like to acknowledge that, we would not be able to deliver the range of programming with this series that we've been able to do without the generosity of all of our donors, especially our harvest level donors. And I also want to acknowledge the support of the Sustainable Connecticut Community Match Fund and the financial support that comes from our community and from the match fund really is key to our ability to deliver this kind of important programming to Essex and the Lower River Valley area. So again, a shout out to all of those who've provided that financial support. We really could not get this done without you, and we deeply appreciate your support. We've got a great session scheduled for you today. There's a lot of you that have signed up for this event. We really appreciate you being here. Joining me today is Christine Rogers, who's a member of the Sustainable Essex Committee, and she's been the project leader for this event and has done a great job putting this all together. Lori Demain is also with us, and she's with the Center for Sustainable Energy, and she's been coordinating the Cheaper Incentive Program since 2018. She'll talk a lot more about that shortly. Barry Kresch is also joining us. He is the president of the EV Club of Connecticut and really is the expert on all things electric vehicle in the state. And Rob Valenti is joining us, who is a third-generation auto dealer, and he's currently the secretary of the Connecticut Auto Retailers Association. Want to cover just a couple of logistical things before we begin. We'll be recording this section, and we request that everyone remain on mute throughout the presentation. This is going to help limit any background noise. We will have a period for questions and answers at the end. So during the presentation, feel free to post any questions you have on chat. You can access your chat button on the bottom of your Zoom window. And then I'll be monitoring the chat during the presentations, and there will allow time at the end to present those questions and have them covered by our presenters today. At the conclusion of today's event, I'll be sending everyone who is registered a resource sheet that'll include a link to the recording for this presentation, and will also include some links to additional resources that you might find helpful. Give us about 3 to 4 days to get that resource sheet out. Sometimes we have a couple of technical issues uploading the recording to our YouTube channel, but we'll get that taken care of, and we will make sure that everyone gets that sheet. So with this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn this over to Lori. Lori, take it away. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me. So happy to be here with you all. Happy National Drive Electric Week. Give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen. Great. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. So yes, thank you for the introduction. My name is Lori Demain. I'm a coordinator with the Center for Sustainable Energy. We've been administering the Cheaper Rebate Program since its beginning in 2015. I personally have been coordinating this program since 2018. We administer this program for the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The Center for Sustainable Energy is a mission-driven nonprofit. We administer several state, local, and utility level energy rebate programs. Here's some of the topics I'm going to be covering today. As Mike mentioned, I'll take some questions, I believe, at the end of the program, but please feel free to put those in the chat so I can answer them later if you have any questions. So first, let's talk about why people should drive electric vehicles. There's a lot of reasons to drive an electric vehicle. One of the big reasons for people is it will save you money. the average EV owner can expect to save $9,000 in fuel costs and $4,600 on maintenance costs over the 200,000 mile lifetime of an EV. There's also several state and federal incentives, which make owning an EV even more affordable. And I'll be talking about these later. EVs are also very convenient. No more oil changes, no more trips to the gas station, and most EV owners charge at home. EVs also improve the local air quality since there's no tailpipe emissions, and this has become really important with COVID as well. And last but not least, EVs are a lot of fun to drive. I think we're going to be talking about this later on, but they have amazing torque, regenerative brakes, and substantial battery ranges now. And since it is National Drive Electric Week, there are several ride and drives happening in the state of Connecticut, and I encourage everyone to test one out and drive an EV and see for yourself. Next, let's go over some basics about electric vehicles. There's a few different kinds of electric vehicles. The first one is a plug-in electric vehicle. So this electric vehicle has both gas and electric powered motors. The range can vary from 150 to 570 miles total range. And then the electric mile range can vary as well. And this is obviously improving all the time. The charge can take from 1.5 to 10 hours, depending on how you charge it, which we'll also be discussing more later. And you can charge it at home, in the public charging or workplace charging. So for the cheaper rebate program, our top rebated plug-in electric vehicles, PHEVs, are the Prius Prime, the Chevy Volt, and the Honda Clarity PHEV. The next electric vehicle is the all battery electric vehicle. So this has all battery powered, and its range varies depending on the model. Also, its charging can depend as well. And it also can be charged at home, at work, or in public charging stations. For the cheaper rebate program, our most rebated battery electric vehicles are the Tesla Model 3, the Chevy Bolt with a B, and the Nissan Leaf. The next electric vehicle are the fuel cell electric vehicles. These are the ones that are powered by hydrogen. They have a very long range, 250 to 300 mile range. And to fuel these, it only takes a few minutes. Unfortunately, I don't think these are very available in Connecticut. We haven't rebated one yet, as far as I know, but they are eligible for a rebate. So hopefully at some point they will be in the state. Now to go into the cheaper rebate. So cheaper was relaunched back in June. It changed a little bit. We have a new dealership platform. We have new incentive levels, and we added a lot more information to the website about all of this. And there's some new guidelines as well. So here we have a list of the standard rebate. The standard rebate is the rebate that's taken off the price of the vehicle for the new EVs at the dealership. So it's a point of sale program. And this is available to all the EVs that are eligible, that are purchased or leased by a Connecticut resident. And you can also see that the standard rebate amount has been increased for a limited time until the end of December, or until we have exhausted all those funds. The next rebate, which is new to the cheaper program, is called Rebate Plus. This is a post-purchase rebate that is applied for by the consumer. It's for income qualifying individuals. And here you can see on this slide, the combination of the standard rebate plus the Rebate Plus for new EVs. And then the third column on the right would be the total rebate amount. So if anyone has any questions, but the Rebate Plus is applied for by the consumer after the standard rebate is processed. And I'll go into what the qualifying attributes are of that in a bit. The second Rebate Plus is for used vehicles. This is also for income qualifying Connecticut residents. It's a post-purchase rebate for people that qualify. And these are the rebate amounts for the different types of electric vehicles. These also have been increased for a limited time until December, the end of December, or until funds have been exhausted. So for the rebate plus, which is the post-purchase income qualifying rebate for new and used vehicles, we determine qualification by categorical eligibility. And the programs we have for determining that, there's 10 programs, and here's a list of 5 of them. For a full list of the other programs that would make you qualify, please visit the link below. So in addition to cheaper, there's also some other rebates available to Connecticut residents. Here's a list of some of those rebates available. There's still some federal tax incentives available for some of the manufacturers. And you can find more information about that at that website listed. Eversource also is offering an incentive for charging stations. I don't know a whole lot about this, but from what I've seen, it's about a $300 incentive that you receive over a 3-year period. And there's additional information as well at the link on the slide. Something that is coming in 2022, the PURA have designed an additional subsidy for charging for residential, commercial, municipality, and fleets. And you should be getting more information about that soon as well. So keep an eye out for that. And then the last link is an organization called Energize Connecticut. They're a great resource to find additional information on clean energy incentives that are available for Connecticut residents. And this is a slide with some resources for charging infrastructure in Connecticut. As you can see, there's lots of resources for everyone as well. And here we are. Thank you so much for everyone's time. I appreciate being able to tell you about the cheaper rebates that are available now for Connecticut residents. This slide has my contact information. If you'd like to reach out to me for any resources, we have printed materials, flyers, posters for dealerships. And also I'm available to do presentations at community events. If anyone is interested, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Lori, very much. A couple things. First of all, the resources that, the links that Lori talked about, we'll make sure that those are in this resource sheet that we'll provide you with after the end of the presentation. And we'll include Lori's contact information as well. So great, Lori, thanks so much. And Rob, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you. Rob, excuse me. Barry, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to share my screen. So thank you for inviting me, and hello, everyone. So this is me. I have been driving electric since 2012, which is when I joined the EV Club, and I became president of the EV Club in 2019. This is what's in my garage. I have a 2016 Chevy Volt plug-in hybrid and a 2020 Tesla Model 3. This, the Model 3 in this picture is not my vehicle. It belongs to the Westport Police Department, who use it as a patrol car, which was a project that the club worked with them extensively on. And in the photo here, it is escorting an EV parade that we staged last year during Drive Electric Week, and which we will be repeating this Saturday, followed by a showcase. Our club is a completely volunteer organization. We are a consumer-facing organization, and we seek to accelerate EV adoption in Connecticut. We operate at the grassroots level, at the policy level, and importantly, we work a lot with data. So in the presentation today, I'm going to give you an example of one of our data projects. That's an ongoing project. And then mostly I will be talking about the ins and outs of what you need to think about in charging your vehicle at home and on the road. This is a montage of us in action. This sets up the data. Several years ago, the state signed something called the Multi-State EV Action Plan Memorandum of Understanding. That MOU commits the state, and I use the word advisedly, to getting 500,000 EVs registered by 2030. And the reason I use the word advisedly is that it's a resolution. It doesn't really have any teeth. It's up to consumers, sellers of EVs, and policymakers at the federal, state, and municipal level to make things happen if we're going to hit that goal. Excuse me. But when the legislature was in the process of doing this, they also passed a statute that requires the Department of Motor Vehicle to post the number of EVs registered in Connecticut on a semi-annual basis. But they only post the top line numbers. So I have a standing Freedom of Information Act request filed with the DMV, and I get the underlying files. I take that information, I build it into a dashboard. It's published on the website. This year's dashboard was 28 pages. It's available for free. And now I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to do a different share so I can show you some examples. So in the lower left, yes, this really is an electric vehicle from 1898 when it was actually the dominant powertrain. As you can see, there are a little over 17,000 EVs registered in Connecticut as of July 1st. So you can also see that we have quite a long way to go to hit the 500,000 that's in the ZEV plan. And we don't really have that much time to do. Battery electric vehicles are the majority of EVs registered. The BEMC is motorcycles, and the FCEV is fuel cell. These are all the models trended over the last several years that are registered in Connecticut. There are quite a lot of them, and there's a very long tail, but the bulk of the registrations are with a fairly small number of models on the left-hand side of the chart. And you can see here the Tesla models, the Toyota Prius Prime, the 2 Chevy models, the Nissan Leaf, the Honda Clarity, a new entrant by Toyota that's off to a good start, the RAV4 plug-in hybrid SUV. This is where they are. Now, the color of these bubbles doesn't mean anything. I just did that to make it look pretty. But the size of the bubble reflects the number of EVs in each city. So you can see that they tend to be clustered in Fairfield County, and the top 3 are Greenwich, Stamford, and Westport. And if we wanted to look at your neck of the woods, we can just do that. And we can see that Essex has 65 EVs registered. And we can look at a couple of other cities in the neighborhood quickly. So I'll look at Old Lyme and Old Saybrook. And each of these cities has a count that's in the 90s. So as I said, there are 28 pages here. I'm going to stop with this and go back to the PowerPoint. This is a graphic that I grabbed from the New York Times, which in turn sourced it from Carbon Counter. And I just thought it was a great illustration that shows that the total cost of ownership for an electric vehicle is for the most part lower than any other type of car, as well as the fact that they're clean. And it's only going to get better because battery prices are coming down. And as we bring more renewables onto the grid, we will be plugging in for electricity that's generated more cleanly. And now I will turn to charging. So the 3 levels of charging, 1, 2, and 3. Level 1, household current, which is also known as trickle charging. Level 2 is charging at a 240 volt unit. You can buy one of these for your home, but you can also see commercial grade units in public parking lots, in shopping areas, hotels, places where vehicles have dwell time. And then there's level 3, so that you can charge quickly when you're on a road trip and you don't want to have to be forced to sit for hours at a charger. So you can plug your EV directly into the socket that you have in your garage with the cord that you get when you buy the vehicle. Now, the point I want to make here is that there are a lot of old homes in Connecticut, and a number of them still have 15 amp service. And you can see visually what the difference between 15 and 20 amp outlets looks like. So if you're going to get an EV, I do recommend, and use trickle charge, I do recommend that you make sure you have a 20 amp outlet or get an electrician to install one, because charging at 8 amps is very painful, but charging at 12 amps is actually doable. Which raises the question, do you need to buy a charging station? If you have a plug-in hybrid, the battery packs on these cars are just not that large, and you will be able to fully charge it from a depleted state by plugging in overnight at household current. Even if you have a battery electric vehicle, but you don't drive long distances, you might be able to manage with trickle charging and occasionally supplement it with a charging session in the wild. The amount of time it takes to charge an EV is dependent upon the power that is being brought to the EV by the charger, as well as what the vehicle is engineered to accept. The point I want to make here is that if you happen to be plugged into a unit that delivers more power than your EV is able to accept, the onboard charger regulates the flow of the power and you will not damage the vehicle. If you are going to buy a level 2 charger, you will need to pull a 240 volt line into your garage. You can either get the electrician to hook up a plug, or you can buy a unit that's hardwired. These are just some general idea of charging speeds at amperage levels of the charger. There are 2 plugs out there. There's Tesla and everybody else, which is the J1772. If you have a Tesla, you can buy an adapter that will allow a J1772 to plug into your car, and it's only about $40. You'll have to make a decision about whether you want a smart or a dumb charger. A smart charger is Wi-Fi connected. You can manage your charging and see status through an app. It is also importantly a consideration for the new round of utility incentives that Lori referred to, which are being rolled out in January of next year. The final bullet point on this slide has to do with sizing the optimal charger for you to buy for your home. So you take the amount of kWh that the onboard charger accepts. In the case of the Tesla, it's 11.5. You multiply it by 1,000 and you divide it by 240 volts. So that would give me a 48 amp charger that would enable me to charge the vehicle as quickly as it's able to be charged in a home environment. It doesn't mean I can't buy a lower powered unit and have the vehicle charge more slowly. And similarly, it doesn't mean that I can't buy a higher powered unit and future-proof. These are what the 2 level 2 plugs look like. The next 2 slides are charging units from 2 of the more widely used brands. So these are smart chargers that are made by Juicebox, 48 amps. And I just wanted you to get an idea of the price range, which is around $600. These are dumb chargers. They're made by Clipper Creek. These are lower amperage units, 32 and 16. And in this case, the prices are in the $300 and $400 range. The first thing I would say when you're going to buy a charger is to start with the electrician. Before you even decide what to buy, have him come to your home. And one of the first things he will do is assess how much room you have in your panel. You may be all jazzed about charging quickly at 50 amps, but the electrician might say that if you want to do that, you're going to have to upgrade your electric service. And if you do that, you will be set back approximately a James Madison. He's on the $5,000 bill. On the other hand, the electrician might say, well, you don't have room for a 50 amp unit, but you could accommodate a 30 amp unit. And frankly, that's a compromise I would take. And then you have to decide hardwired versus plug-in. If you are going to buy a powerful unit greater than 40 amps, it has to be hardwired. And if you're going to install it outdoors, it has to be hardwired. The main use case for a plug-in unit is if you think you may be moving, you would be in a position to unplug the unit and take it with you. Otherwise, I would go with hardwired. It's a little faster. You don't have to worry about the plug. Level 3 charging are superchargers that populate the interstate corridors and some downtown areas. Plug-in hybrids do not accept a level 3 charge. And there are 3 connectors out there: Tesla, CCS, and CHAdeMO. The CHAdeMO connector is gradually going away. It's a Japanese standard that came here because the first mass market EV to be sold in this country was the Nissan Leaf. It was made in Japan and had a CHAdeMO charger, but Nissan has now switched to CCS. And basically the VHS Betamax wars are over with respect to level 3 charging. This point I have here about Tesla battery preconditioning is just a clever thing that Tesla has done. I am not aware of this being a feature of other cars, although it could be. Every EV will help you locate charging stations. And in the case of Tesla, if you put your route into the nav, it'll even recommend where it thinks you should charge. But when you select a charging station, once you get to the point where you're about 10 minutes away from the station, the battery will start to precondition itself. It'll vent, it'll lower its temperature, and it will be ready to accept a charge at one of these high-powered chargers. So that means as soon as you start plugging in, it starts charging. Every battery on every EV has to precondition itself before it accepts a charge, but a lot of them don't start to do that until it's plugged in. Consequently, when I've stopped at a supercharger, my visits are never longer than 15 or 20 minutes. There are also multiple networks being built out. Lori showed you a couple of them. There are companies like Electrify America, EVgo, Blink, ChargePoint, and a number of others. Now, one of the points of hesitancy about buying an EV is range anxiety. The environment is a lot better than it used to be, but it's still a concern, so I don't want to minimize it. So let's start by unpacking it a little. If you buy a plug-in hybrid, there is no range anxiety. You have gas. You may not always be driving on zero emissions, but you're not going to get stranded. And plug-in hybrids, when driven on gas, drive normally. If you own a Tesla, you mostly don't have to worry about range anxiety. Their charging network is the most robust and it's very well maintained. As far as non-Tesla battery electric vehicles, as I said, it's getting better. First of all, the electric range of the vehicles has improved dramatically. The first Nissan that was sold in this country had 73 miles of range. If you were to buy a Nissan today, the premium trim level has 226 miles. The Chevy Bolt gets 258 miles. The new Hyundai Kona gets 300 miles. The Mustang Mach-E gets 300 miles. My Model 3 gets 322 miles. The new Model 3 gets about 354 miles. So ranges are much longer and they continue to increase. As I said, the number of public charging networks is growing, but the advice that I would have for a non-Tesla EV owner is just to do a little bit of planning. Look at your route, see where the charging stations are, maybe plan on stopping a little bit before you absolutely have to, and have a backup in case you run into a problem. Also, these different networks that we've been talking about don't talk to each other. So the charging apps will tell you which charging stations belong to which networks. You should have an account for each of them. There are also some tips to extend your range. Outside of moving the vehicle, the biggest energy hog is heating the vehicle, because most electric vehicles come with resistance heat, which is not particularly efficient. Some manufacturers, and the two that I'm aware of are Tesla and Nissan, are moving to heat pump technology, which is a lot more efficient. And I expect other manufacturers will be rolling that out as well. But one thing you can do to minimize battery drain is to bring the car to your desired temperature before you leave. So start the car 15 minutes before you leave home while it's still plugged in, and let it come to temperature. And that will save actually quite a bit of battery range. The other hack you can do is that once you unplug and you get in the car and start driving, is turn off the cabin heat altogether and just use the heated seats and the heated steering wheel. This becomes a matter of personal preference and tolerance. I personally can get away with that until the temperature gets into the 20s before I start feeling uncomfortable. I don't do it that much with the Tesla, but I do it a lot with the Volt because I want to drive on electric as much as possible. Every EV has regenerative braking. When you take your foot off the accelerator, and I have to remind myself not to say gas, the engine slows the vehicle down and it restores some of that kinetic energy to the battery. So regen on every EV is configurable. My personal preference is to set it at the highest level. And so I'm mostly doing 1 foot driving, and I'm maximizing the amount of energy that I'm recapturing, and I'm minimizing the use of the friction brakes. Teslas have a feature called Sentry Mode because there are cameras in the Tesla. Sentry Mode runs all the time, even when the car is off. So I have it configured so that when the car is in the garage at home, the car knows it's at home. Sentry Mode turns off. The use case for Sentry Mode is when you're parked in a public place and you're not with the car, it will see what's going on. So you've heard about people getting busted for breaking into cars because they've been caught on camera. But it is using energy, and you should keep that in mind. This is a slide about buying a Tesla in Connecticut, where Tesla is not allowed to open stores. I'm not getting into the politics of the issue, which are contentious, but this is what the process is. Most orders are configured and placed online. However, Tesla does have a license to execute leasing paperwork in their Milford facility, and you can get a test drive there. However, whether you buy or lease, the car cannot be delivered to Connecticut. You have to go to New York to pick it up. Even though Tesla has stores in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, all Connecticut residents have to go to New York. When you get there, they will register the car in New York, and you'll drive away with temporary plates. And then once a week or so, an employee from Tesla will gather up all the Connecticut registrations, drive them to a DMV facility where the registration gets transferred to Connecticut, which enables the remittance of the sales tax, and the DMV will send your permanent plates to you in the mail. Tesla has traditionally not offered a buyout option with a lease. I haven't checked recently, but that has been their practice. And Elon Musk is a quirky guy who said that he would accept payment in cryptocurrency. I looked on the site briefly last night, and I didn't see anything listed there, so I don't know if they're still doing it, but we don't recommend it. The purchase process for a Tesla takes a little while. Usually takes a few months to get the car. And if you're buying with cryptocurrency, you're not protected against the fluctuations, so we don't recommend it. as I said, I've been driving electric for 10 years, and I can't imagine ever going back to an internal combustion engine vehicle. The driving experience is better. It's of course cleaner. I don't miss stopping for gas. I like not having to bring it in for maintenance very often. The main cons that I can think about have to do with the public charging environment. It's a lot better than it used to be. It continues to improve. You still, however, will sometimes run into non-working chargers. There's a patchwork or absence of laws having to do with keeping the spaces policed. So if you go into a parking garage and there's an ICE vehicle in an EV space, the attendant is likely to say, well, it's not my job. So there's some of that still out, and over time, I think the procedures will be in place to figure it out, but it is a little bit complicated because you're dealing with both public property and private property. And then that last point, which is more an annoyance than a problem, is that the different networks are not interoperable. So I think there will be workarounds that are developed around that. I know there's a lot of talk about it. And I just want to come back to the final bullet on the lower left, the big picture. I think there will come a day where we are driving zero emission vehicles powered by renewable energy, where there is a circular manufacturing environment, where we're manufacturing batteries, chips, where the mining of the minerals is sourced domestically, and where everything is recycled. And if we can do that, we'll have a cleaner environment, we'll have more jobs, and it will be better for our national security. So that's why I do this. And with that, I thank you for your time. And now you know where to reach me.
Barry, thanks so much. Great presentation, tremendous amount of information there. Couple points. First of all, we'll make sure that we include the link to Barry's EV Club website on the resource page that we'll be sending out to you. And just a reminder to everyone before we turn it over to Rob Valenti, to put your questions in chat. If you're thinking of some things, you can put them in now. I'm monitoring chat. We've only got one question right now going on, but don't be shy about doing that. We'll have some time to cover some of those, and we encourage your questions. Rob, I've got the presentation, so give me a moment. I'm going to share my screen, bring that presentation up, and then we'll turn that over to you. Bear with me, folks, for just 1 minute. Okay. Okay, Rob, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Barry and Barbara and Lori for your presentations. They're very informative. Again, I'm Rob Valenti, Valenti Family of Dealerships. We have dealerships in Rhode Island and in Connecticut. I was going to start this morning, and a lot of stuff I had on my agenda has been covered, so it's one of the good things about going last, I guess. So I'll adapt and modify as I go. But basically, Barry covered some of the EVs. There's about 45 different models of EV vehicles available for sale in the state of Connecticut. And as the manufacturers add more models, there'll be more of them coming across the table for people to choose from. We have a Toyota store, which obviously sells the Prius and the RAV4, which Barry had mentioned, and then the Highlander hybrid. And then we've got Subaru, which just added an electric vehicle, which will be coming out soon. We've got Chevrolet, which of course has the Bolt, and the Volt that Barry had mentioned was a previous one. We also have Ford, which the big one at Ford has been the Mach-E, which we've sold every one we can get, and they're just a fantastic vehicle, and we've got a backlog of orders for that. Also, the new Lightning electric truck has been announced. We personally have about 60 orders available for that vehicle, which is going to be out in about a year from now, is when they'll start being delivered next summer. And I think there's over 200,000 orders around the country for the Lightning. So that's done real well. And then over at Chrysler, the Wrangler 4xe has been really popular. That's a hybrid, but it's done really well. You can actually turn off the gas motor and have an electric motor, where you can go four-wheeling or anything on an electric motor. And then also they have the Pacifica, which is a hybrid. And of course, Volkswagen has many models coming right now. They had the Golf E, which kind of been retired now, but they have the ID4, which is a sport utility four-wheel drive vehicle. And that's taken off like you wouldn't believe. They make it in front-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, and it's done extremely well. And Volkswagen has probably 4 or 5 more models coming out. They got the Buzz, which is going to be a little bus coming out, and they've got a few other sedans coming out, and they're really committed to the BEV options and the hybrids as well. So there's a lot of vehicles available in the state of Connecticut for sale from all the manufacturers. I'm not going to list them all, but there's plenty. We kind of went over the BEV, battery electric vehicles, and the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and the fuel cell electric vehicles. Toyota has the Mirai, which is the hydrogen fuel electric, which not really available in our market right now. I think maybe California. And also the plug-in hybrids have been really popular. As Barry said, it gets rid of that range anxiety that some people may have, the hesitance of a fully battery electric vehicle. So that's what's out there. They covered. Here's a list of them. I did list them all up there. I'm not going to read every one of them off. I mentioned a few that I'm familiar with that we sell, but there's every manufacturer and franchise pretty much has them available and are adding them as we go. Toyota has a new one coming out next year, all electric. So there's several that are being added to the list as well. I mentioned Subaru. Next, I think I was going to talk about consumer demand and wait time. As I mentioned previously, there's a huge demand from the consumers for the electric vehicles, which is fantastic. I think it's great. Some of the issues that we're having, and I think sure everybody's aware of it by now, there's a chip shortage, not only in the automotive industry, but also in computers, into many other, into boats, into RVs, almost anything you're looking for. There's a chip shortage that's probably going to be almost a year before that's rectified by the sounds of it. So we do have a lot of these orders waiting, and it's just taking some time. People are being patient, and they are getting built, and we are being able to deliver them, but that has slowed some of the delivery. And we're doing a lot of pre-order options. You can go online, and the Lightning is all online order. The Mach-E, you can order online. Ford's come out with a new Maverick pickup, which has been really popular. That you can order online. That's more of a hybrid model as opposed to full electric. But all those are available, and you can come into the dealership, and we can walk you through that process, or you can do it and then come into to us and track your order and see how we're doing with you and help you out with that. So it's been very, very great market for us. Also, they talked about, I don't know if it's in my slide or not, but they asked about, geez, some consumers are concerned about how do I service them. Barry went over very good about what services are needed and what ones you don't need, and you can alleviate your service time. But all of the franchise manufacturers are certified to be EV dealers. We can't just order vehicles. We do have to be certified, which means we have to have all the product knowledge for our salespeople, and they're certified and pass tests. We also have technicians that are certified that can service the vehicles. We also have to have equipment available. I believe every dealer that sells electric vehicles has to have charging stations. So almost every dealer will have at least one charging station. In most cases, we have 2, generally a regular charger and a fast charger available at all dealerships. So we use those for our cars coming in. We use it for our customers. We use it to charge the vehicles on the lot. So almost every dealer has that. So there are certifications, there are equipment requirements for us as dealers to be able to sell them. And again, the knowledge of our salespeople and our training of salespeople and technicians to sell and service the vehicles. So it's, as you can see, as Barry pointed out, the number of vehicles that are on the road and the demand is increasing. it's only going to get better, and we're happy to sell and service the vehicles, and I think that pretty much covers that portion of it. I don't think I had. I guess the last thing, Barry hit on it, and actually Lori hit on it a little bit. If you haven't driven one of them, please drive one. I'm telling you, they're exciting to drive. They're fun to drive. They're quick. They're responsive. Barry mentioned one pedal driving. They're all regenerative brakes. So you can actually set it up to even do more braking. So you didn't even have to touch the brakes in most cases, or in some cases. The Mach-E has that. But they're honestly a pleasure to drive. Quiet, smooth, responsive. And I encourage anybody that is interested in them to drive them. And there's so many options out there that I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But that's basically all I have. And thank you very much for allowing me to be on this call. And I learned a lot today. Thank you very much. And I'm a pleasure to be a part of it. And we're always available. Myself, Rob Valenti, my phone's always on, always open. Call me at any time if you have any questions. And also the Car Association, we're always there if you have any questions relating to that as well. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Rob. Really appreciate it. A lot of great information. Again, what I'll do is I'll work with Rob and with Barry and with Lori to make sure that we're pulling together a lot of links to a lot of great resources that'll provide additional information for you as you make your decisions in your households about whether you want to go electric, or if so, what kind of electric you want to do. I am taking a look at some chat here. Bear with me for a moment. Yeah, we've got a few questions in chat now. So the first one comes from Chris. And this is probably a question to Lori. Do you expect the rebate amounts to be renewed after they expire in December? Lori, any information on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So the rebate amounts aren't expiring in December. It's the increase that they're calling. I believe they're just calling it an increase for the time being. But our program will be evaluating the funding amount and deciding with Connecticut DEEP if we're going to be continuing the additional incentive amount or changing it back to the original incentive amount. So it's half of the amount. So the PHEV is $750 for a standard rebate. So the normal amount is $500. Sorry if I didn't explain that correctly, but yeah, it's just an increased amount for right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lori. It was a little tough to hear you, but I'll tell you what, I can work with you offline, and maybe I can take your answer, type it out, and we can provide that with the resource sheet. But thanks for that. There was a question about can we get some more information about where Connecticut is in terms of selling Teslas? Yeah, we'll look into that. That was really not the focus of today's session. This was more of a minute information sharing, but there's information out there online on online news platforms like Zip06, et cetera. But I'll see what's available, and if possible, we'll get that into the resource sheet. This is a question for Barry. Connecticut has, and I'm reading this verbatim, Connecticut has very high electric rates. Is it economically feasible to use an electric only vehicle? A gallon of gas costs about $3.18, and the equivalent 33.7 kilowatt costs $8.03. So Barry, not to put you on the spot, but any thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. The answer is yes, because electricity is a much more efficient propulsion mechanism than gas. So your cost to power the car, I don't have my information in front of me, but based on my recollection, the cost to go a mile in an EV is going to be something like 5 to 8 cents with Connecticut electric rates. And your cost to drive a vehicle that gets about 20 mpg on gasoline at this fuel cost I see here in the chat at the cost of $3.18 a gallon is going to be something like 16 or 17 cents. So you'll save almost 3 times, somewhere between half to 3/4 of what you would spend on fuel by using electric.
Okay, thanks. Another question on the performance of EVs. In general, how well do EVs operate in the snow? Do the vehicles typically offer all-wheel drive? Barry or Robert?
I'll jump in, but I'm sure Rob has plenty of information about this. EVs are actually very good in snow. I can tell you many of them offer 4-wheel drive, but not all of them. But the architecture of the EVs, especially battery electric vehicles, which have larger battery packs, is the so-called skateboard architecture, where the EVs are resting on the undercarriage, and that gives the car a low center of gravity and makes it very stable in snow.
I'll agree with Barry, exactly what he said, that the low center of gravity and the weight of the battery does give it an added traction. And again, yes, there are many, almost not all, but many of them are adding an all-wheel drive component if they don't have it already. Prius has got all-wheel drive now, which has been phenomenal. The Mach-E 4x is an option as well, and many people are opting for that. The 4xe Jeep Wrangler, the ID4 is front and four-wheel drive. So I think you'll see almost all electric vehicles go to some form of all-wheel drive system, and they operate very, very well in the snow.
Right.
Just by design. Yep.
Great. Another question. This is again back to the rebates. Where do rebates stand for an EV like the Ford F-150 Lightning if pre-ordered today but may not be delivered for 2 years? So, Lori, any thoughts on that?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I'll speak up a little. So the super rebate program evaluates eligible vehicles on a couple of different qualifications. The OEM has to actually reach out to us to provide us with information for us to evaluate it before we can put it on the eligible vehicle list. So unfortunately, we wouldn't have that information until the OEM reaches out to us. But if you're just curious to see what the qualifications are, it's the base MSRP has to be under $42,000. So that's basically one of the qualifications. So yeah, there's no right answer to that, but I would say to just check back on the website, and you can also reach out to us. I'll put the email address below if you have any additional questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I think you may be in a bad cell area there, Lori. I don't know, but we could hear you. I know you're trying to speak up, but you were cutting in and out. So tell you what, what I'll do is I'll save all these chat questions that specifically relate to the rebates, and then I can work with you offline, and we'll publish the responses back out to everybody who registered for the event.
Do you mind if I jump into the rebate question?
Sure, Barry.
Question. So the incentives apply when the transaction happens, right? So in the case of the example that was mentioned in the chat, which was the F-150, currently the federal incentive has a manufacturer cap of 200,000 units, right? So Tesla and General Motors have phased out of the current federal incentive. Ford has a long way to go. So I expect, well, I don't want to, I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. That's a long time. But for vehicles delivered for the foreseeable future, possibly even as long as 2 years, they will still be remaining under the manufacturer cap. And so the federal incentive is likely to be here. However, you should pay attention to the reconciliation bill currently before Congress, because if that passes, it's going to change all of the rules around federal incentives, mostly for the better. One of the things it will do is remove the manufacturer cap. So Tesla and GM will be reinstated, and Ford will not have to worry about losing eligibility. On the state side, the most important thing to keep in mind is the MSRP cap. So Lori was referring to the list of eligible vehicles. So the MSRP cap applies to the trim level of each vehicle. And if that trim level is more than 42,000, then the vehicle is not eligible for a cheaper rebate. And I think that's going to be a much bigger issue with the F-150 than whether cheaper is still around, which I expect it will be.
Great, thank you. Here's a question on the whole charging network. How quickly is Electrify America building its network in the Northeast? Rob or Barry, any information on that? Or Lori?
The Northeast is actually a focus for phase 3 of Electrify America build out, which begins next year. They're in the process of site acquisition, and then they'll be getting into permitting in the beginning of the year, and they'll be starting construction probably in the late spring. And the Hartford and Bridgeport metropolitan statistical areas are 2 of the areas of focus. So that's not just the city of Hartford, that's the whole MSA, the whole surrounding area. And similarly, the Bridgeport MSA is basically all of southwestern Connecticut.
Great. Another question. Are neighborhood mechanics getting trained in serving electric vehicles, just in general? Rob, I know you touched on this a little bit.
I honestly don't know what the neighborhood mechanics are doing, whether they have access to that type of training. I know we have access to it because we have the manufacturers behind us, and we get all the training materials from them, and all the classroom training from them, and all the equipment and all that's required. As far as your local neighborhood garage, I don't know if they have access to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Here's an interesting question. Are auto dealers recycling EV batteries?
We are not currently recycling EV batteries. I think there's some programs out there that are coming down the road, but they are going to be offering them from some of the manufacturers will offer. You can sign up to be a recycle station at some point, but I don't have the details on that at this time.
Okay.
Tesla is recycling batteries at this point.
Okay. Tesla is, okay. And I'll check with Connecticut Deep to see if there are some programs out there that are coming down the road.
I know Volkswagen has a program for it, because you can sign up as a dealer, which I've done. So if they're coming down the road, I know that.
Okay, great. Here's a question that actually came in before the event took place today. How do you know when to take an EV in for service? You know, how do you know when it needs new tires? You know, or just to check things like a battery or moving parts that might wear out. So it's different than obviously a fossil fuel vehicle, but any thoughts on how you know it? What's regularly scheduled maintenance look like for an EV?
Well, every electric vehicle has a maintenance schedule. In the case of the Tesla, maybe while you're on another question, I'll see if I can find a slide and maybe I could bring it up. But there is a schedule. It's fairly infrequent. Typically once a year, you want to get your fluids checked. You want to get your tires rotated. You want to get those checked. And these are also connected cars. So in many cases, the car will tell you if something needs to be serviced.
Okay. Lori, I got your chat. Lori was kind enough to put her answers to the couple of questions we had most recently where it was difficult to hear her. She's provided that information in chat, and I'll copy all this and we'll make it available when we send the resource sheet out. So Lori, thanks for taking the time to do that. Appreciate it. Here's another question. What are the most safe EVs? Are there some that are considered more safe than others?
I mean, all the vehicles are very safe now. I mean, they have the airbags, side impact airbags, front impact airbags. They're all go through rigorous safety checks. So I don't know if there's one more safe than another. Maybe Barry may have more information on that, but I think they're all latest technology and very safe vehicles to drive.
Thank you. Thanks.
All the EVs have very high safety ratings. I mean, you know, there are some stories that make it into the press about battery fires and such. I think they just reflect the fact that things happen when new technology is being developed. I don't think it's an endemic problem with the vehicles. By and large, they're very safe.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in chat. These were great questions. This was really, really good conversation. And I appreciate both the participants and the presenters to hang in there with these great questions. We're right at our 1 o'clock break time. So if there are no other questions, again, I want to thank Christine, Lori, Barry, and Rob for really a lot of really great, wonderful information this afternoon. Again, as a reminder, we'll get that resource sheet out to you. That will include a link to this recorded presentation, as well as a number of other resources, including some of the typewritten answers to some of the questions around the incentive rebates. And just wanted to put a plug in for our next SEED event that'll take place this coming Monday, October 4th at 7 o'clock. And we are really fortunate. We're partnering with the Essex Library on an author talk with the award-winning journalist J.B. McKinnon, who is the author of The Day the World Stopped Shopping. And there's going to be a general discussion around the effects of rampant consumerism on our climate. And JB is going to start to offer some starting points for change. How can we transition to a more sustainable future from the standpoint of a consumer culture? So really outstanding SEED opportunity coming up. And again, that is Monday, October 4th at 7 o'clock. And you can go out to the Sustainable Essex website into the events page, and you can immediately access the registration link to sign up for that event. And the resource sheet will include that, that link to the Sustainable Essex website. So I'm just doing one more check. I don't see any other questions. Thanks so much, appreciate it. And have a good rest of the afternoon, folks. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Well done.